is this incompatible with this? It's kind of funny how most people who almost seem to make it a career to try to discount this in terms of being an authority on morality, all of a sudden become ardent Bible thumpers when it comes to questioning the morality of owning something like this.
At what point in the Bible did God hand give us the right to carry an AR-15? How about cop killer rounds? What books of the Bible do I need to read in order to understand this God-given right? My favorite part of the Bible is when God tells Jesus that his AR-15 is perfectly legal. Damn, better get a refund on 13 years of Catholic schooling because they did not teach me this. What a ripoff. Which book of the Bible is it where Jesus is carrying an AR-15?
Now, speaking strictly in terms of technicalities, they are correct. But in terms of principle, they are grossly wrong. And in terms of what they know about what the scriptures say about self-defense and the ownership of arms, here's what's missing.
It's one of my rights as a free man to protect my home when I need it. I give men my right to bear arms, yeah.
Now, those who are unfamiliar with Christianity, and even those who are, might forget that Jesus Christ was a practicing Jew, and as such was familiar with the teachings of the Tanakh, which is the law, the prophets, and the writings of wisdom and history. And contained within the law were provisions for defense of life and property. And throughout the writings are examples of private arms ownership and the defense of self and community. Now, there's no record of Jesus ever having actually carried any weapons, but that was because he chose not to, because the provisions within the law were just that, provisions, not mandates. However, keeping consistent with the law's recognition that evil exists in the world, Jesus permitted his followers to carry weapons, even in his presence. Some would say he even encouraged it. As you find in Luke 22. Then he said unto them, But now he that hath a purse, let him take it, and likewise his scrip. And he that hath no sword, let him sell his garment, and buy one. Yeah, but that wasn't really a sword. That was a knife or a dirk or something. It certainly wasn't an AR-15. Except if you look at the Greek for the instrument in question, makaria, it is based in a Greek verb meaning war. So it was an instrument effective for fighting. But what about what happened in the Garden of Gethsemane? You know what Jesus said, he who lives by the sword shall die by the sword? Well, let's just work with that phrase right now. And is it really a fitting condemnation of arms ownership? Was it a condemnation of self-defense? Well, we've already talked about how the law has already made a provision for that. Is it a condemnation of soldiery? Well, look at how Jesus interacted with two soldiers in particular. A centurion, for example, he didn't condemn for saying, no, you carry weapons and so I have nothing to do with you. No, he commended him for having more faith than his countrymen. The other one was a soldier who asked him, well, what must I do to be right before God? And he didn't say, put away your weapons. No, he said, don't use your position to oppress and exploit others. So that leaves us with a third option, which is banditry, taking others' goods forcefully for the enrichment of yourself, and that is worthy of condemnation. But getting back to that encounter in Gethsemane, there was an interesting thing that Jesus did tell Peter to do with his sword, and it wasn't throw it away. It wasn't surrender it to the authorities. It was put it back in its place, which has echoes of Ecclesiastes 4 saying that there's a time and a place for everything under heaven. And right then and there, that was not the time for self-defense. Not for what Jesus had come into this world to do. And that brings up another point, restraint. Now, it is a major feature of the Christian life not to give in to your lusts, not to give in to your passions, to exercise self-control. In fact, that's considered one of the fruits of the Spirit right there. Now, you got to ask yourself, would you rather have someone carrying a gun who is encouraged to exercise restraint or someone who did not? And finally, the last point I want to bring up comes out of Luke 22, verse 38. And they said, Lord, behold, here are two swords. And he said unto them, it is enough. He had 2 disciples out of 12 that carried weapons, which shows that it was not a major point of focus in the life of a Christian. Nonetheless, it was permitted. Now, there's a temptation to try to fit all Christians into the same box, to say that real Christians only do this or real Christians don't do that. However, if I read Romans 14 correctly, that there are variations allowable in day-to-day practice among Christians. Now, Romans 14 concerns itself largely with the observances of days and diets among different groups of believers. And Paul goes on to explain that how certain people abstain from doing certain things in the interest of honoring God, while other people do those certain things in the interest also of honoring God. And both are completely allowable in the sight of God. And I'll submit to you that the same is also applicable to guns. That there are some people whose consciences have led them to the conclusion that because guns are used in killing, it's probably not a good idea for them to carry something this, or this. Yet on the other hand, other people's consciences have led them to the conclusion that life is sacred enough to defend, and therefore it is completely okay to own something this, or this. So there is enough room in the kingdom of God, among the people of God, for both camps of thought. But ultimately, it's between God and you, not someone else trying to pressure you to go one way or the other. What is he saying to you? How is he affecting your conscience on the matter?